Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Executive. I'm Councillor Claire Douglas, and I'm the leader of the Council. And Executive is one of the two main decision-making committees of the Council. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and we will dive straight into the agenda. So the first thing on our agenda this evening is apologies for absence. We have no apologies. Councillor Pavlovic is here. He will be with us in a moment, I'm sure. Item number 2 is declarations. Oh, that's not quite true, is it? We have apologies from Councillor Eyre, and Councillor Widdowson is attending in his place. So welcome, Councillor Widdowson. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? No, there are none. Thank you. Item number 3 is exclusion of press and public. So this is considering item 14, Annex A, on the grounds that it contains information relating to financial or business affairs of a particular person or business. And that is under the item which is delivering more affordable housing in York, which is Castle Mills. Does anybody think that they will need to discuss the private annex on that item? No, okay. Then the other item that we have exempt information under is appendices I and J on agenda item 15, which is the update on the asset management strategy 26 to 2031. Does anybody believe that they will need to speak about that particular or those appendices? No. Okay, so we have no indication that anybody would like to discuss the private information. So therefore, I suggest that we don't exclude press or public. We want to do as much business in public as possible. Chris Koss, who is here, is our head of legal services. If you feel the conversation is straying into anything that shouldn't be discussed, can you please let me know so that we can take action at that point? But I highly doubt that that will be the case. Thank you. So item number 4 is the minutes of the meeting which was held on the 22nd of January 2026. Can I see those who are in favour of accepting those as a fair reflection of the meeting? So those are approved unanimously. And then item number 5 is public participation. And today we have 5 people who are here to speak to us, either online or in person. And we also have received 4 written representations, all of which have been circulated to the executive members, and those have been considered ahead of considering item number 10. I believe they're all in relation to item number 10, city centre events and permanent ATTRO on that item. So public participation then. Please can I ask Flick Williams to speak first? She's online. Flick, can you hear me okay?
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, and we can hear you perfectly well as well. And so you have 3 minutes, as you know, and I won't give you a warning. I'll just tell you when the 3 minutes is up if needed. Please go ahead.
Let's start with some self-evident hard facts. York is not Chester and will never be, no matter how many times you visit. Coppergate Car Park does not and never can have a ground floor. Dundas Street is still as far away from the foot streets as it always was. Improvements within the city centre, for which you are extremely clear there is no money, would assist those disabled people already able to get there, but fundamentally doesn't change the most important fact of all, that if vehicles are not permitted into the foot streets, there are and always will be disabled people for whom there is no mitigation and they will be excluded. The stated vision of a city centre accessible to all is sadly a pipe dream because it is irreconcilable with the clear directives from government for enhanced counter-terror measures and your desire for increasing commercialisation of public realm space. This report makes 8 references to co-design. I'm afraid that sitting disabled people in a room and asking us what our solution is to an intractable set of circumstances is not co-design. It may be well-meaning, but it is effectively managing expectation and making us complicit in our own exclusion. This is exacerbated by the lack of a remuneration policy and expecting disabled people to give our time, lots of it, and expertise for free. There is even a reference to co-production going forward. This is a gross misrepresentation. Co-production is about power sharing, making decisions on an equal basis, yet we can't even be part of the safety advisory group, having to rely on a council officer to apparently represent us. So we are right back where we always have been, figuratively tinking about at the margins of both the conflict of interests and the foot streets. Paragraph 25 is frankly insulting. Talking about better mapping of lived experience is nonsense. Disabled people tell you time and time again with every consultation about our access needs, yet there is no learning. Every successive one is a blank sheet. And as for, and I quote, as societal understanding of complex needs advances, just look at events following the BAFTAs to see how that's going. You haven't even been able to apply your new learning from recent DET to the language used in the report. I predict that once in place, far from lying dormant, a permanent ATTRO will be increasingly used for ever more events, including protests. And because we are ruled globally by dangerous psychopaths, the world fundamentally changed last Saturday. With the UK terror threat level now certain to rise from substantial to severe, coupled with the Chief Constable, who already said the idea of vehicles in the foot streets keeps him awake nights, means we are staring down the barrel of another permanent blue badge ban. You know it, I know it, and no amount of marketing of mitigation changes that. Thank you.
Comments into our consideration.
Thank you, Flick, and we will certainly take your comments into consideration under item 10. The next person on the list is Councillor Anna Baxter, who I believe is in the room, and she wants to speak on item number 9, which is the site recycling review. So you have 3 minutes. Councillor Baxter, would you like me to give you 30-second warning? No, you're okay. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see this report coming through today. I want to thank Councillor Kent for all the work that has gone into this and officers behind the scenes as well. As we all know, waste and recycling is a complex service to run, especially with the continual balancing act across the city with different priorities. Recycling collections in my ward is something that's been consistently raised with me since the day I was elected. And it's one of those issues that residents feel as soon as it's happened, whether it's boxes that have been blown over, materials that have been spilt into the street, and it really impacts how people feel about their neighbourhood. So I'm glad we're taking this seriously. And particularly in Hull Road, with the mix of housing types, the 3 boxes can be challenging in some areas. So the proposal to begin engagement on moving to wheeled recycling bins for many households could bring huge practical improvements in my ward, whether it's the better containment of materials, better capacity, or just a simpler system for people to navigate. And for areas in Hull Road where we have particularly long stretches of Hull Road, it can reduce littering as well on the windier days. I'm really pleased to see that there's going to be a lot of engagement on this issue. As I said, it can really vary in wards and across the city, and so it isn't just a one box fits all. And I'd really encourage residents in my ward to engage with that. I'd also like to particularly pay tribute to the late Martin Emerson, who was the chair of the South West Hull Road Residents Association, who emailed me probably about once a week on this issue since the day I got elected. And although he isn't here with us to see this through, I know he would be really, really pleased to see this for the Newland Park area. So thank you, Martin, for always emailing me about that. And just to thank Councillor Kent again for the engagement on this. It's a really important change that I know will be hugely welcomed in my ward and across the city as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter, and we will certainly reflect those in our consideration of item number 9. The next person who is registered to speak is Diane Roworth, and she wants to speak to us on item number 10. So Diane, can you hear me? I can't hear you, Diane.
Right,
I think. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, yeah,
Oh.
I can hear you now. Yeah,
Lovely.
can you hear me okay?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank
Good,
you.
okay. So you have 3 minutes. Would you like me to give you a 30-second warning?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. It is the ambition of the council to provide full independent access for all to the city centre at all times, an ambition that is applauded and no less than should be expected of a human rights city. Getting to grips with ATTROs will be one factor in achieving this. ATTROs may be necessary sometimes, but if we have to have them, they need to be implemented in a way that upholds all of the council's plans for accessibility for all. The council plan, with a core objective of equality of opportunity, the local transport plan, economic strategy, and My City Centre 10-year plan, all embed inclusivity and access for all. But we need to be more ambitious in achieving access for all, because we are leaving disabled people behind. I'd like to make 3 points. 1, this report is not robust enough in explaining the complete exclusion of some people from their own city centre when ATTROs are in place. I am confused by the Human Rights and Equality Impact Assessment, as it identifies the actions proposed as positive for disabled people. They are most definitely not positive for those disabled people for whom the mitigations, such as closer parking, are not sufficient. They will be excluded, and that needs to be publicly acknowledged because it is an important factor in how ATTROs are enforced in future. 2, you have not identified that disabled people are not a static cohort. There are over 8,000 blue badge holders, but 1,600 new blue badges have been issued in the last 12 months. That is 1,600 people who will not be able to go into the city when an ATTRO is in place, unless it is applied differently. 3, proposals in this report have been described as co-designed and co-produced with York Disability Rights Forum and York Access Forum, which is a somewhat generous description. 2 meetings were held to get disabled people's views on what can be done to mitigate the impacts of the ATTRO, but this report is the first time we have seen what has been taken from those meetings, despite asking if we could see it before it went into the report. Can we have a common understanding of what co-design and co-production involves before we start applying it to what is usually a meeting to get people's views? And can we move forward to use co-design and co-production quickly so that we become a city accessible to all in the shortest possible time? Thousands of people are being marginalised, including the 1,600 new blue badge holders. Don't forget, 24% of the population are disabled people, which in social model terms means disabled by society, not their impairments. Let's not leave anyone behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. We really appreciate you speaking to us and giving us your views on that item number 10, and we will certainly take them into consideration at that point. Thank you for joining us. Person number 4 on the list is Andy DeGorn, and he would like to speak on recycling review item number 9 and item number 10 as well. So you have 3 minutes. Would you like me to give you 30-second warning?
Yes, if I need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
Okay, as you said, I'm speaking on 2 items. So firstly, I want to welcome the recycling review and plans to consult residents on proposals for recycling bins to replace boxes wherever possible. This should reduce injuries and minimise street litter on windy recycling days. The main concern will be the limited outside storage space for houses with yards or smaller gardens. Ideas that I suggest could be explored should include encouraging the sharing of one or more bins with a neighbour, and also allowing residents to swap to a smaller slimline residual waste black bin, such as those have been used on the Bags to Bins programme. The second point I want to make is reference the question of inclusive access to the city centre, which you've heard two speakers on already, whilst protecting everyone from hostile vehicle attack, particularly during the Christmas market and other major events. The proposed permanent ATTRO does indeed need to be consulted on urgently, having been delayed. Paragraph 4 in your report references the existing discrimination, but against those who use the cycle as a mobility aid, still banned throughout the year, when provision has now been made for car users with blue badges to access the Goodham Gate, King Square route and Blake Street and St Helens Square. Paragraph 5 and 9 suggest and completely unacceptable 3 to 5 year timescale for mitigating the impact of the measures, despite work having started in 2021 on looking for new parking, disabled parking bays and so forth. And since then, of course, we've also had the loss of a dial-a-ride service that's made matters even worse. The production of a movement and place plan, which is referenced in this report, was actually approved in 2024, and yet is still stuck in, according to quoting from the report, the initial procurement stages, effectively pushing key strategic solutions either to the mayor or beyond the 2027 local elections in York. This is shocking, yet as with the current government, residents in York are let down by Labour after years of promise of change and action on transport. Even the vital repairs to Lendal Bridge have now been delayed until 2027,
30 seconds.
with costs and deterioration escalating by the week. We can't wait any longer for a bold movement and place plan. We need to see action now.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for your comments. They will be considered. And then finally, we have Councillor Tony Fisher, who wants to speak on the item number 11, which is consultation on a York-wide smoke control area. So you have 3 minutes, Councillor. Would you like me to give you a 30-second warning? Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
I personally have had a wood burning stove for over 26 years. During that time, it saved me about £10,000 in fuel costs and saved about 100 tonnes of CO2 from being put into the atmosphere. It's had completely DEFRA compliance, so this doesn't affect me at all, so I don't need to declare an interest in it. This measure is a solution to a problem that is negligible. If you compare the population density between the existing area and the new area, it's about 24.6 to 1. The ratio of stoves between the existing area is 11.4 to 1. Now, PM2 particles are a problem for health in medium to high concentrations, no doubt about that, and I fully support the current position in terms of smoke control. But the additional areas have very low concentrations, most of it just blows away and is never seen again. I'll be more sympathetic if this measures included bonfires, chimeneas, fire pits, barbecues, but the law doesn't allow for that to be included. In 7 years, I've had one complaint about a wood-burning stove, countless ones about bonfires, especially since the charge for recycling waste, green waste, was introduced. You totally failed to take into account the benefits of wood burners with respect to climate change. Wood left to rot on the ground produces methane, burning produces CO2. Methane is 28 times worse than CO2. You're a council which says it's working to reduce poverty. Many older, poorer residents use salvaged or scavenged wood on open fires or older wood burning stoves. They can't afford new appliances. Deprivation is not just confined to your wards. The parish council helps. We have 2,000 trees. When we have to take them down for safety or disease reasons, we cut them up and leave them and for people to collect, or I'd collect them and distribute them around the village when they're seasoned. The consultation showed 64.7% opposition. I think you missed Oswald Parish Council off the objectors and also Strensel as well. Representative Strensel was going to speak, but he said he was going to accuse city councils of imposing socialist views on our traditional village life, so I persuaded him not to come and came instead. If you look at the responses, response D1 numbers 10, 11, 51, 104, 125 and D25 all sum up exactly why this is not appropriate. As for D114, I'd love to know who wrote that, says he, tongue-in-cheek. Question 10, point 10, how will it be
Have
enforced?
30 seconds.
Yep, thank you. How will enforcement officers be ensconced on winter evenings looking at chimneys? Of course they won't. It's a complete waste of money. It will change nothing. Nobody's going to pay any attention to this because we'll just carry on our village life as we have done for hundreds of years. So now you'll say to me, your views will be taken into consideration when we make our decision. Please don't, because I know the decision has already been made. Nothing I say will make any difference whatsoever. But for the sake of my residents, I had to come and stand up for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher, and I hope the Director of Public Health and the officer who worked on the smoke control area will give you some of the data that they have around some of the claims that you've just made. So we will consider your points when we look at that item. Right, so that is the end of public participation. The next item on the agenda is the forward plan. Can I see those in favour of approving forward plan as outlined? So it's approved unanimously. Thank you for that. Next item then is item number 7, which is the report of the budget and medium-term financial strategy task and finish group. So who is representing? Who's presenting? James Parker, I can see you moving. James, are you going to come to the table? And Councillor Baxter as well as the chair of that task and finish group. So who is starting on this then? Okay, please go ahead then, Councillor Baxter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As members will know, I chaired this task and finish group, which was a real pleasure working with Councillor Moroney, Councillor Hook and Councillor Eyre, as well as many officers across the council, and especially James, of course, who's put a lot of time and effort into this. And it was a really constructive working group. We worked really well together. I know that residents across our city are feeling financial pressures from every angle. And households are having to make tough decisions every day. And that's why it's right that the council is transparent about their budget setting process, and this administration is absolutely committed to doing that. And in the task and finish group, we looked at how the council makes annual decisions, early and effective scrutiny takes place, and how clear financial information can be presented to members, and also how we look at working with residents and stakeholders. It's also worth noting that because of the by-election this year, there wasn't as much engagement as we would have wanted with the businesses. And we also looked particularly at adult social care, which, as we all know, is a huge pressure on the council's finances. I'm really proud of the recommendations that we have put together and that we brought forward. I think they're practical and achievable, but also ambitious, and don't just accept the status quo and want to go further for our residents here in York. This includes starting scrutiny earlier in the year. As we all know, the second that budget's done, we have to start again, and we really want to put that into action. Also improving the clarity of the financial reporting, strengthening engagement with residents, working with the comms team, and continuing our scrutiny both in committees and in briefings. As I said, this administration has been clear, and I want to thank Councillor Katie Lomas for her work on this with the task and finish group, because it's so important that our residents, when they're paying more, understand what that money is going to. Ultimately, this report, although it's a few pieces of paper, it will make a huge difference to our residents, and I want residents to feel like that they've had a say in it through their councillors. So thank you all again for all the time and effort that's been put into this, and particularly to James, as I said again, for the format of the report. I thought it was brilliant and one of the best reports I've seen, and it was nice and clear for residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. James, do you want to say anything at this point?
Thanks, Chair. Just to add a couple of points, if that's okay, and thanks, Councillor Baxter, for your kind words. Just two elements that I wanted to draw to members' attention, if that's okay. The first was around that there are 7 recommendations, and the report is asking executive to endorse all 7 of those. Some of them are areas where Corporate Scrutiny Committee itself had the authority to take action. So some work has begun on that. That's highlighted at paragraph 21 in the report, but just to note, by way of an update to that we now have membership agreed for the re-established budget task and finish group and the joint task and finish group looking at adult social care financial challenges. And then also recommendation 7 was around tracking recommendations, and Corporate Scrutiny Committee at yesterday's meeting agreed an approach to track scrutiny recommendations. That was the one point I wanted to make. The second was just to flag that as part of the refreshed approach to scrutiny that's been taken across the council over the last year, task and finish groups have been envisaged as being a much larger part of scrutiny's work, and just to highlight that this is the first of those task and finish groups that's reporting its recommendations to executive. So hopefully the first of more to follow, but just to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you, James. That's really helpful. Do any members around the table like to speak to this paper? Councillor Widdowson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I support the recommendations in this paper. Stronger scrutiny, clearer reporting, earlier engagement, all of that is welcome. But the most important recommendation here is recommendation 3. Start the budget process earlier. Because we now know the numbers. The 3-year settlement from the Labour Party government has been published. York stands to lose around £38 million over the next 3 years in government funding. Austerity on steroids. Next year alone, we face a 10 million shortfall. Even with the maximum council tax rise every year, our overall funding effectively flatlines. So let's be clear, the funding gap is known. The pressure in adult and children's social care is known. The budget process could start tomorrow. And if we're serious about transparency and about the spirit of this scrutiny report, then Labour could come clean tonight and tell residents which path we intend to take. Are they going to ask government for permission to raise council tax permanently above the cap by around 150 quid per household? Or are they planning to cut roughly £1 in every 6 from the non-social care budget over the next 2 years? Which will mean further cuts to libraries, highways, neighbourhood services.
Councillor Widdowson, can you keep to the content of the paper, please? Because we do have a packed agenda, and I think we get the message, but if you could move on, that would be quite helpful.
Things residents see and rely on every day.
Well, marvellous. Thank you very much. Councillor Lomas, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to all of the members of the Budget Scrutiny Task and Finish Group and all of the officers that supported it. And there were lots of officers involved, but particularly James for taking on something a bit different and new for us and really making it a process that not only came out with a report that has great recommendations that I think will make a real difference, but also that came out with recommendations that we took on board as we went along through the process that we were already going through with budget planning. So it wasn't just the recommendations that you see before you today. There were also other suggestions that members of the cross-party group made that we took on board immediately and implemented, because that's the way we like to work. If there's a good idea, we'll take it, we'll run with it, and we'll make it happen. I'm acutely aware that the budget process for the current financial year that have just gone through for the current financial year has been contracted in its length. We all experience that. We all experience the intensity of trying to pull together a budget in a short space of time because of the timelines. And I'm delighted that we will be able to start the budget process early. And I know Councillor Widdowson won't be aware because she's not part of the Task and Finish group, but actually we've already got James has already been sending us emails to arrange the meetings so we can start that process with the Task and Finish group with its new membership So I'm really grateful to everyone who's put themselves forward to be part of that piece of work. It doesn't start tomorrow, it started today, which is great. We've exceeded your expectations, Councillor Widdowson, and I'm really happy to do that. So I look forward to working with the Task and Finish group, taking on board their suggestions and recommendations, not just at the end of the year when the report comes to executive, but as we go along in real time to make the process better all round. And I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Councillor Lomas. And I'd just like to thank the Task and Finish group as well. You know, scrutiny is so important in the organisation, and it adds a really important input into policy making, and also another layer of making sure that we're really delivering for the residents of York. So we can't underestimate how important that is, and particularly around budget. And I think it was a really good move to start that up last year, and it was the first year of that approach, and I think that the scrutiny of the budget process will continue to develop, and I want to see that happen this year as well. So I would really value speaking to Councillor Baxter and Councillor Lomas about what that might look like, in order that we do get more proactive input and ideas and suggestions from the Task and Finish group on how we move forward on this. So on that note, we will go to page 28 of the report, where the recommendations are. And under paragraph 8, it says executive is asked to endorse the report and recommendations of the Task and Finish group, and to implement them. And we have done that, and we will continue to do so. So can I see those who are in favour? So that is approved, and thank you for that, Councillor Baxter, and you can take that news back to the members who participated. Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us. Right, everybody, item number 8 then is Best Start in Life local plan, and we have Martin Kelly here. We've had lots of people, goodness gracious. So we have Peter Roderick, we have Kate Horn, and we have Rob Newton. So who is going to start? Martin. Martin's going to introduce this to us. Please go ahead, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report presented today has been led by a partnership of both Children's Services and Public Health, and hopes to bring in many other partners along the journey. The report describes the local authority's proposed approach to increasing the number of children who are measured as having a good level of development by the age of 5, in response to the government's ambition for children to have the best start in life. In response to this administration's request to be even more ambitious for children, it also seeks support for a very ambitious child development centre. I'm going to hand over to Rob and to Kate, who's going to take us through the report.
Thanks, Martin. So as Martin says, the report responds to the statutory requirement set by the government for every local area to publish a Best Start in Life plan by the end of March 2026. And asks for 3 things: approval of our strategic approach to developing our plan, delegated authority to Councillor Webb to sign off the final plan as we worked at some tight timescales, and also to pursue the Centre of Excellence ambition alongside partners in the city. We know that inequalities in our city emerge really early. And some recent work that we've done identifies that they actually exist by the time that children reach their first birthday, and are significant by the time that they are 2. And York has one of the largest gaps in outcomes by age 5, which is the ultimate aim of the plan, is to improve outcomes by that stage, the statutory assessment at the end of reception year. And some of the challenges that families exist around fragmented early years services, so lots of people working really hard, but often not as joined up as we might hope. And families tell us that that's a system that's currently difficult to navigate. And yet we know the research evidence tells us that the early years are a particularly decisive window in people's development. And a little known fact is that 90% of our brain has developed by the time that we reach the age of 5.
Thank you. So in terms of the public health approach to this, I mean, we know that the best start in life provides us with the best opportunity to really reap that greatest return, not only for children to thrive, no matter what their background, but right across the life course. And if we cast our minds back to the Sure Starts, we know in terms of the health economics that was done around that, for every pound invested, we have £11 return on investment. So it really is a great opportunity. Can I also remind everybody that in terms of the Health and Social Care Act in 2012, that public health holds that statutory responsibility for our 0 to 5-year-olds through the Healthy Child programme. And this presents us a real opportunity where we're invited across the threshold of families' homes where they really trust us at quite a vulnerable time in their life. And I'm sure you're familiar with Sir Michael Marmot's work that he did around health inequalities and how this is one of those 8 policy principles in terms of laying out the foundations for every aspect of human development, given that time period where our brains develop the most. So it really is an opportunity to strengthen our prevention and inequalities approach. And in terms of that primary prevention, this is our real opportunity in public health that we see. Giving every child the best start in life, as you know, is a national strategy that was launched in the summer. It's one of the government opportunity missions, and here in the City of York Council, you'll be familiar that it's been a long-held ambition right across multiple administrations. There are 3 areas in the strategy. One is support for families. The other one is accessible early education and childcare, and the other one is providing quality childcare in the early years. There are 4 pillars: proportionate universalism, meaning provision is there for everybody, but a scale and intensity that is proportionate to need. We've got prevention and evidence and co-production in terms of ensuring that everything that we have in the plan is based on evidence, and working with families, taking that real opportunity to work with families about what's important to them, grounded where they live their lives in communities. And as Rob has pointed out, quite often families have to retell their story. So how do we really connect up our fragmented system? And that's a real opportunity that we've got through the Best Start in Life. And just to remind you, finally, from my perspective, that this isn't a strategy, this is a plan for York that will help us really mobilise strategies that we've already got and commitments that we've got in terms of the One City for All, our health and wellbeing strategy, and our children and young people's plan.
Thank you, Kate. Very much appreciated. Peter, do you want to say anything?
I mean, I don't think there's a huge amount to add. I think this is an exciting aspiration. I think some of the research potentials we have as well, we have incredible assets in the city, don't we, in terms of both our universities, and we've already started quite extensive engagement, and something quite exciting probably I think is happening that the paper describes around innovation and evidence, which I'm really excited to see sort of work out over the next year or 2.
Great, thank you. Right, do any members want to speak? Please go ahead, Councillor Widdowson.
Thank you. The Liberal Democrats have recognised the importance of investing in very early years of a child's development. This was detailed in the Better Start programme and the Early Talk of York programme, which was started a few years ago. The successful application for family hub funding obtained by the previous administration set the foundations for the SEND hub, and from the report, the development of this hub. Nevertheless, the local perspective has been that whilst the government is keen on cutting ribbons for buildings-based services, excuse me, you'll have to excuse me for that. Nevertheless, the local perspective has been that whilst government is keen on cutting ribbons for building-based services, the local Lib Dem team has emphasised the importance of provision of service to cover the whole city and to help reach all families and young children who will benefit from that support. Clearly, with the changes to the business rates, national insurance and the like, the nursery sector is under severe pressure, and therefore it's important to support the viability of this sector. Equally, the national uncertainty over SEND provision funding is adding more complexity. The report mentions in paragraph 22 that York has not received additional funding for the Start for Life services, and it's vital that the case for fairer funding for these and other services are made for York, which has many pockets of deprivation. Too much government funding considers York as a whole rather than recognising the additional support which is needed in many households, just as much as they are in metropolitan areas. It's important that there are measurable outcomes with public reports on the results of this plan to demonstrate the range and extent of interventions. The decision today does not really cover this aspect.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. I will leave officers to take that away and have a think about it if you want to respond in your own time. Councillor Webb, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to start by thanking officers for the excellent work, for the positive attitude that you've brought to this, and the clear level of work and detail and understanding that's involved in this is huge. I think, unfortunately, Councillor Widdowson, I think your speech, whilst I'd advise you read it first, I think your speech really didn't help and isn't the right tone to take at this point. But I did recognise that, yet again, I knew this would have been a Liberal Democrat idea before it happened. That seems to be the standard approach now. I should have backed it on my bingo card. Something that didn't exist when they were in power suddenly has something to do with them. And there was an awful lot of scaremongering in there as well. But in terms of one thing that you did mention around fair funding, absolutely we need to fight for better funding for York, and that's what we continuously do as an administration. Onto the bulk of what we've got here today. This is yet again further evidence of this administration and its ambitions for children in York. We are highly ambitious to support our young people and their families to get the best outcomes that they possibly can. And I know that the team here are absolutely the forefront of making that happen, alongside hundreds of colleagues across the city in early years, in schools, in midwifery, in the universities, everywhere, in public health, everything, to make that difference. And I know that they're going to do a great job at that. A few of the key things to mention. This is a universal approach because we recognise that does absolutely provide the best possible opportunities for young people in York to engage, but we will absolutely do everything we can to make sure that this support gets to those families who need it most, because we have always stood on that platform and we continue to do so. And we will drag everyone else with us, kicking and screaming if we have to, but that's what we do. I'm glad that Kate mentioned Sure Start. I'm sure that was another Liberal Democrat. Oh, no, wait, no, you cancelled it. But Sure Start was definitely something that made a huge difference to young people. And for every investment of £1, you save 11 quid, right? This is real positive, preventative work. You know, this is very close to my heart as the father of a 1-year-old. I'm slightly concerned that 90% of his brain is going to be developed by he's 5, and that's entirely my fault. So, you know, this is a huge challenge. And yet again, you know, as a secondary science teacher, there's very little that we're doing at that point, isn't there? That has not been done properly in those earliest days. So this is really vital work. I'm really pleased. We've not just, and just my final point, we've not just done what the government has asked and come up with a plan that supports good level of development. We've taken that step further and used really the convening power of this council to be even more ambitious by developing this Centre for Excellence, pursuing this idea to work with partners to make this happen, right? That will make us an absolute leader in this field. And that's something that we should be really proud of moving forward. If it can work anywhere, York is absolutely the right place to do it because of all those passionate individuals who are working in this field. So yeah, I'm really pleased about this one. I think it's going to make a big difference long term for children and families in this city and beyond. And let's get on with it.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Webb. And I'd just like to add the support for the York as a centre of excellence in early childhood development. It's another show of the willingness of our partners across the city, our really strong system working, and absolute commitment to the people of York that we are willing to and can come together to support this. So I look forward to seeing how that develops, and I'm sure that Martin, you and I particularly will be putting that case towards government and telling them all the marvellous things that we are doing, as we had an opportunity to speak to Minister Josh McAllister just last week about the successes in children's services. So it's really good news, and thank you to all of you for all of the work that you have been doing around that. So on page 54, everybody, the recommendations are at paragraphs 25, 26 and 27. And so they are to endorse a strategic best start in life approach. They are to approve delegated authority to the executive member for children and education to sign off the final local best start in life plan. And they are to agree the ambition to position York as a centre of excellence for early childhood development, working with the partners that are listed there. So please, can I see those who are in agreement with those recommendations? Thank you very much, and please go ahead and get started. As Councillor Webb says, marvellous. Thank you for joining us this evening. Item number 9 is the recycling review, and we have Dave Atkinson here joining us. Please take a seat at the table, Dave. Welcome. So when you are ready, please go ahead.
Evening. So at the moment, we're going through a piece of work in waste services around reviewing and optimising rounds, and we saw an opportunity whilst we were doing that work to review something that had become sort of an issue for the city, but a legacy thing in terms of the 3 recycling boxes that residents have, which were historically there to separate into 3 separate streams, which we no longer need to do. The boxes have left us a bit of a legacy, having been a resident of an area that has had boxes where I've regularly not had my own box or the lids back. It's open to jettisoning of recycler and the consequent litter, and there is a cost to us from clearing that litter up as we follow the waste crews around. The management of the boxes is challenging from an operational perspective, with issues around musculoskeletal injuries associated with that, plus challenges for residents in terms of managing, lifting the boxes and presenting. And once when we were exploring those items, we started to look at the business case for moving from recycling boxes to recycling bins. The bins, most residents have bins for residual, which is their grey bin. We'll recognise that the bins are easier to manage. What we would propose, or what we explored in terms of developing the initial business case, was using a single cell vehicle to collect a single stream every 2 weeks. There'd be a residual collection, a recycling collection would be paper and card, residual collection, and the rest basically. And the capacity that you would get in a bin would be far more than you would get in boxes through that particular cycle. The boxes provide better capacity, better containment, and they give us the opportunity to contain more material when the simpler recycling in England policies roll out in terms of soft film and other materials that are on top of toothpaste tubes and Tetra Paks that we've introduced recently. One thing that we would look to implement would be, if we were using single cell vehicles, it would give us the ability to compact. So we'd be able to collect more side waste, larger cardboard, for example, in larger pieces. And we would review the current mist container policy, and that would be sympathetic to a lot, and obviously a longer period between potentially bin collections. I think it's really important to say that when we're looking at exploring these things, we're looking at which residents are ready and which residents or which properties in the short term wouldn't be ready for this transition. And that's what we want to explore through public engagement exercise. We recognise that there's around 7,000 properties that have recently been involved in the bags to bins work that we absolutely wouldn't have in scope for the initial piece, but the public engagement would be more about the rest and thoughts around how that would operate better for residents, and that includes presentation and storage, and we would seek to take a piece to scrutiny in late spring, early summer. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate that. And would anybody like to speak on this item? Councillor Widdowson, go ahead, please.
I'm really glad to hear that you're looking at some of the questions that I'm going to be asking you, Dave. So this isn't simply about moving from boxes to bins. Alongside the change, you are looking to save £500,000 a year by moving from fortnightly to monthly recycling collections.
That's not correct. No,
Would you like to...
So we didn't. So apologies, Councillor Widdowson. I just wanted to respond on that point. That saving is to do with the waste optimisation.
Right, okay.
Completely separate to boxes to bins. So yeah, apologies.
Okay, my apologies on that. Move on. If it is about boxes to bins, then fortnightly collection should remain an option. Paragraph 6 talks about the optimal operating model. Optimal for whom? Residents or the council? The affordability section ignores the upfront capital costs of purchasing and distributing the bins and the time it will take to cover the investment. With more online shopping, cardboard volumes have increased significantly. You talk about there being a single cell where you can compact more, but at present households can request additional boxes and put out multiple boxes. That flexibility works, especially for larger families, under a monthly system, because the cardboard or the glass and the plastic will be collected on a monthly system. Am I correct in that? Yeah, 4 weekly.
Make sure you use the microphone, please. And actually, can we just take the questions and then answer them all in one go? Because this is get on
system. Many houses.
Okay. Can we get a move on as well, please, everybody? Thank you.
Under a monthly system, many households could end up with less practical capacity, not more. In terrace streets with limited outdoor space, residents could expect to store up to 4 large bins. Paragraph 11b suggests properties unable to accommodate bins may retain boxes. But does that mean they move to the 4 weekly collection? And if so, does that solve or not solve the storage problem, or does it compound it? Paragraph 38 states that over 8,000 properties are effectively out of scope, meaning 17% of the city could retain fortnightly collections, or is it just on the consultation that they're out of scope, while the rest move to the monthly 4 weekly collections of recycling? Does look a little bit like a 2-tier system. There are also operational risks. Under the current missed bin policy, and I know you've mentioned it, if the council is at fault, residents are often told to present the waste at the next scheduled collection. Under a 4 weekly model, that could mean waiting 8 weeks. That needs to be looked at before anything is implemented. And the equalities impact assessment is concerning. There is no meaningful analysis for any visually impaired residents of the weight of wheel bins or of the practical impact of transporting twice the volume of recycling at once. It assumes bins are automatically better than boxes without addressing volume and weight issues. Finally, why didn't this go to scrutiny? And why is there no serious reference to lessons learned from previous research and trials? This is a fundamental service change affecting every household in York. It requires honesty, proper analysis and proper scrutiny.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. I'll just speak and then you can come in, Dave. So what I would suggest, because there were a lot of questions on there and I'm sure, you know, it's too much to handle in one go, I would say that, you submit your questions, and if there any written representation is needed, that would likely be quite a good way. But also, Councillor Widdowson, I would like to draw your attention to the paper, and it does outline that the business case is going to scrutiny in May, and so that members will have their opportunity to look at what the proposals are and have their input then, won't they, Dave? But would you like to just make any comment given what you've just heard? You don't have to answer everything, by the way.
You've mentioned it's gone to scrutiny. The 7,000 would be out of scope completely, not just to the consultation. With 2 containers, even at 180 litre, residents would have more capacity over that 4-week cycle. With 3 boxes, they would have 330 litres. With the 2 bins, they'd have 360 litres. So that's even if we went to smaller containers. I think that's. I'm happy to answer other questions offline. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Kent, thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank Dave and also Ian Holt, who I know has worked very hard on this and done a lot of the background work. Thank you for presenting it. I also wanted to thank our public speakers for taking the time to come and show their support. My colleague, Councillor Pavlik, was nodding as Councillor Baxter was talking about the good people of Hull Road. And my memory was jogged on hearing the name Martin Emerson, because one of the first emails I received in May 2023 was from Martin saying, please, 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 will you get rid of these ridiculous boxes and switch to wheelie bins? So I'm sorry he's not here to see us bringing this paper for consultation, but it was partly in response to that, and he wasn't alone. I've had lots of people contact me about this. The people I meet out and about when we're doing our monthly litter pick in Holgate bring it up every time, that the litter that flies out of recycling boxes is difficult for people, and it blights our streets, and it causes cost for the council and unpleasantness for residents. So containing that better would be a positive step for our environment and for our residents. And the whole approach of this is to find out what the best system is. Councillor Widdowson, you talk about a 2-tier system as if that's necessarily a bad thing, but what we're seeking to do is get engagement with the city to see what works best for everybody, depending on where they live. And it may well be that there's a different model for different residents. We know from our recent experience for the 7,000 properties that are out of scope, for the bags to bins, that there are complications with the smaller terraces and people with less space. And we are really alive to that, and we want to listen to people. But we also know that a vast majority of residents in York would really welcome this. And again, that's from conversations I've had, that's from complaints through the service, questioning why we have this antiquated system, or as it's called in some areas. And so we need to be sensitive to everybody and do the best we can. And I have had quite a few contacts from residents, particularly our older residents, who have asked if they could just have a wheelie bin themselves. Could they buy their own wheelie bin? Because they really struggle with the boxes. So lifting those boxes and moving around and ripping up cardboard to fit in those boxes has been really difficult for them, for people with arthritis or other health conditions. And some of those emails have been really upsetting to read, because you really want to help these people to present their waste and their recycling in the best way possible for themselves and the city, and they really want to do the right thing. So the increased capacity of the possibility to recycle more, the fact that it's easier and you can have larger pieces of cardboard, which currently the twin cell vehicles don't cope very well with, the fact that you could have side waste put in there would all speak to increased recycling, better containment, safety and ease of handling. And let's not forget our crews. We have an ageing workforce who suffer a disproportionate number of musculoskeletal injuries because of the thousands of boxes they lift every year. And we want to protect them because they are also our residents, and also their welfare is our concern. So for all these reasons, we want this consultation and engagement with the city. I urge everybody to take part. We want to hear from everybody. And I also wanted to add that the amount that we're going to cycle at the doorstep, which is another new thing. But these are bulky items, and those boxes are not going to cope so well with them. So increasing capacity on the doorstep, which means you don't have to go to the tip, you don't have to go to a bring bank, you can have it taken away from your door for free, These are all really important things to consider when we want to increase the capacity. And I really want to stress that this isn't necessarily a cost-saving exercise. Initially, it isn't. It would only work if the business case stacks up and we can pay this back in sufficient time. And there are savings longer term in switching to a single cell vehicle. But this is being done for the best interests of the environment, our residents, and increasing recycling. And look forward to what the engagement will bring. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. And on that note, we will move to the recommendations which are on page 83 at paragraph 14. And that is A, approve the commencement of public engagement around moving from recycling boxes to recycling bins, and the emerging business case to be presented to scrutiny in May 2026. And the scope of the properties will be determined by the engagement exercise to inform a business case to be brought to a future executive meeting. So can I see those who are in favour of that? Thank you. So that's approved. So please go ahead. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for joining us. Next item is item number 10, city centre events and permanent anti-terrorism traffic regulation order. And we have Gary Taylor and Ben Murphy here to introduce this paper to us. Please take a seat. And don't forget to turn on your microphone. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So initially outlined, so the report actually sits against the report brought to exec members in respect to the Christmas market. So in respect to some of the queries earlier around that wider assessment that was undertaken as a part of that specific report, this report was specifically on request of executive to look at what measures could be implemented for the Christmas event this year in terms of the market, but also in the consideration that the likelihood, whilst not all of these measures would need to be applied, in effect for all events, given what we now know, we have to apply a greater range of measures to protect that event zone and for those events. So it is sat within the context of a much wider range of reports that have been brought to exec. The report specifically looks at a range of measures to improve access and information. Those are outlined in paragraph 26. I was going to take those as read, but happy to go through those if exec would want that. But those measures sit in the context of the ATTRO. We have, as much as we possibly can in the time frame, and I do accept some of the criticism early in terms of the co-design. I mean, co-design happens over much longer periods of time, but we have had 2 sessions where we have listened. Views have been brought to us that we are in this report, and vice versa. We've outlined what the key issues are in terms of why we can't apply certain elements, and taken people in terms of the journey that we went on rapidly last year, in terms of the context of the report we brought to yourself. But I totally accept the criticism in terms of we will need longer periods of co-design to get to where we need to be in terms of that full accessible city. In that context, the piece of work in terms of the reimagining of movement and place is about to be commissioned this week. So that will go out to market to bring the resources we need to undertake that really in-depth piece of work around co-design. And notwithstanding, this is not just about accessibility, it's the heritage, it's the cycling, it is the economy of play. So there's a much wider piece of co-design and collective co-design in terms of bringing people into space, in terms of looking at how do we address those wider conflicts and how does the city work as a whole. And out of that piece of work will come a more significant piece of investment that the city needs. And I totally agree in terms of what was referenced earlier in terms of York isn't Coventry, York isn't Bath. York has a peculiar set of circumstances in terms of its urban design, its fabric, and then how we've implemented certain degrees of protection, how some of the road spaces are set out that means that actually it's less able in this current state without significant investment to achieve that level of accessibility it needs. So And whilst in the report we say we've got no money, and that is absolutely the case, there is funds in the mayoral funds and there are national funds if we have a broader strategy in which we will be able to deliver those major works. I'm confident we will be in a place, but it will take time. I mean, the co-design to do well will take time, and we need to do that well because we need to reset the city in terms of that quality of place, accessibility, etc. And then the delivery, as we've seen, in a slightly different context for another day, but in terms of the delivery, in terms of physical works on Station Gateway, takes a lot of time. Can be faster and hopefully faster, but that we're not in that place yet. So this is set totally in the context of what can we do now, fundamentally, and I accept. I don't want to accept that there are limited options, but there are options. And this doesn't set it in aspect in terms of the whole point of this is that we have now set up groups and points of engagement where we're constantly looking at how we can make minor changes and evolve what the context of the actual infrastructure we've got now, and also the resources we've got across all of the partners to improve the information and the responsiveness. I will point out that there will be another report on the permanent ATTRO, so this report isn't about the permanent ATTRO. That needs to be consulted on, and we're just preparing for that relevant consultation, which will take place in the coming months, and we'll bring that report accordingly in terms of the outcomes of that consultation and any recommendations. It does also present an option in paragraph 26, one of the bullet points. Apologies, it's not numbered. In around a potential rest day or a morning closure, each of those would have more detailed implications. So that is really a request of yourselves in terms of the direction of travel you want me and the resources in terms of your officer base, in terms of to go away and look at that in more detail. That would need more economic appraisal and assessment, and that detail isn't presented to you today in order to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Ben, do you want to add anything at all?
I think Gary's about covered all that I had just
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Who would like to speak on this item? Please go ahead, Councillor Widdowson.
The paper does read as a decision to make the temporary ATTRO permanent. In effect, this paper places the blue badge access in the hands of the police. We agree that decisions around access to the city centre, given the very real terrorist threat to our city centre, should be made by the police. We always have. The Deputy Leader called the terrorist threat imagined. The report goes further and makes clear that the police are likely to enforce restrictions more frequently throughout the year. That has financial consequences. The Christmas markets is a one-off cost that Make It York can absorb. But what about the smaller events? The Viking Festival, the Ice Trail, the illuminations. These events can't sustain large security bills. Paragraph 3 effectively states that when push comes to shove, there will be an assessment of whether events or blue badge access take priority. And the clear direction of travel seems to be that the events will win. That's a permanent policy choice that contradicts Labour's clear manifesto pledge, and I quote, end the blue badge ban. On engagement, the report references meeting York Disability Forum and York Access Forum, but there didn't seem to be any minutes, summaries, or substantive feedback included. Page 132 simply states the proposals are generally supported. That phrase doesn't tell us a lot without the evidence. If those groups were consulted, their views should be transparently reported and debated. There's also no mention of the replacement for dial and ride. For residents who rely on accessible transport, that omission is significant. Security should never have been a political football. If we are making these arrangements permanent, then we must be honest to the residents about what is happening.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. Councillor Lomas, would you like to speak next?
Yeah, thank you. as the previous time that we discussed issues around access to our city centre, I think it's important to start by acknowledging that some of the issues here are really, really difficult because we're being asked to think about the risk that is posed when people gather together because some people choose to abuse that fact versus the very, very real impact of the things that we do to try to keep people safe. And so that's really difficult to keep in your mind. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things because it absolutely says in the recommendations, paragraph 17, part 3, that we agree to receive a subsequent paper setting out the outcomes of a formal ATTRO consultation and associated actions. So Councillor Widdowson's assertion that this is an agreement to make a permanent ATTRO, I don't know where that's come from. She obviously wasn't reading the same paper I was. And I'm grateful to officers for the work that they've done to try to pull together lots and lots of different viewpoints and perspectives that are all difficult but all equally important together into this report. And I'm also grateful to the people who've contributed to everyone's consideration of all of these issues. And that includes all of the people who have contributed through the York Access Forum, the York Disability Rights Forum, but also the representatives from the BID and Make It York and from other of our wonderful city centre businesses who've shared their views, and the many, many people who've contacted us to talk about their thoughts, their concerns, their perspectives, their viewpoints around this, because it's an important conversation that we have. And it's important that we keep in mind the need to take into account both the needs of our residents and visitors and the need to keep safe residents, visitors, people who work in our city while holding events. And you know, I welcome the request of us to agree that we want to hold events in our city. We want people to come together to share the wonderful things about our city. We agonise over how we can bring those people together and keep them safe while enabling as much access as we possibly can. And I welcome the focus on longer term improvements to access, because I think we all need to just be really clear about this. The level of access that was in place before the blue badge ban was not a perfect level of access. Many, many people were excluded or found it very difficult to access our city centre and the events that we held there. So we are not just looking to restore a level of access that existed pre-COVID, but we are looking to improve the level of access year round. And that is a long-term aspiration for us. And I welcome the confidence that officers have that we will be able to draw in funding as long as we can continue to sell York as a great place to gather together and enjoy. So I hope that Councillor Widdowson will find some more support for the efforts that we're making to try to balance all of the needs, concerns and risks in this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Lomas. Councillor Kilbane to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Gary and Ben. And Ben, apologies that Gary just stole all your work. No wonder he was trying to swap the names around at the beginning, but I know you've done a great deal of work on this, Ben, as indeed has Gary. So thank you both very much. Where do we start on the politics of this? It really is disgraceful, isn't it? Exaggerating positions to score political points when actually what we're dealing with here is people's lives and whether or not people can fully participate in the life of the city. And just to stay on a negative for a moment longer, We are not going to take lessons of failed politicians who refused to do what they could have done in their time in office and did not do so. So thanks for your advice, but we'll judge you by what you actually did or indeed didn't do. Just to make sure that we're all absolutely clear on the consultation that's happening on the permanent ATTRO, which will be starting imminently. Where you have a permanent ATTRO, it is not the police who decide what can and can't go into the city centre. It will be the Safety Advisory Group, which is made up of representatives, yes, of blue light services, but also of civilian organisations as well and council organisations. So, you know, let's not be misleading people. The police never decide what can and can't go into the city centre, never have. They always strongly recommend. And it was a strong recommendation last year that put us in this very difficult position, because it is no secret that we do not agree fully with the police when it comes to vehicle access into the city centre, because we believe that the year before last we provided safe access to blue badge holders between the hours of 5 and 7 during the period of the Christmas market. And just to stress again, that we are just talking now about the period of the Christmas market. When the previous administration was in charge, they banned blue badge holders from the city centre permanently, day in, day out. And if they ever get their hands on power again, they are on the record of saying they will do the same thing. So if you hold a blue badge or you know somebody who does, please bear that in mind when it comes to voting in May of next year. So just to get back to where we were with our the blue badge access that we initially were able to grant during the Christmas market between 5 and 7, that access in itself was rubbish. You know, being able to access the city between 5 and 7 when the opticians is closed, when the dentist is shut, if you're trying to get to see a solicitor, it's not great. So what we need to do is we need to come up with a method that allows all of our residents and visitors to access all of our city centre all of the time. Now, given the world that we are living in and the threats that are posed in that world, that is a really difficult conundrum to solve, but we have an absolute duty to continue to solve that conundrum. And this is the start of that process. These are some short-term mitigations, and they are mitigations, and mitigation is not full access, but we need to start with these in these particular circumstances. I also take on board what some of the other public speakers were saying, so that a conversation is not co-design and is not co-production, and it's good to hear Gary acknowledge that here tonight, that there is a lot more work that needs to be done on that journey, because there are access needs that are currently not being met and have not been met in the past, and we need to find out what they are and make sure that everybody's access need can be met. I think it's quite an interesting point that you raised, Gary, around access to the city centre on a particular day. And I think it would be good if you could go away and investigate that for us to see what the benefits of that would be and the costs. Although I must stress that this is not about the commercialisation of the city centre. This is about us wanting to put on events that attract lots of people into our city centre to all come together and share in the joy that York can give to people. And that matters more now than I think it ever has before, because there are plenty of people out there who are trying to divide us. It's really important that we all come together. So just to finish off for me, Chair, just to say this is far from being the end of the journey. This is the start of a journey as we work with all those concerned to see how we can ensure that there's full access to our city centre 365 days a year. We are the only, as far as I'm aware, political group in York who are totally committed to that and see it entirely as the duty of the council to meet that need.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. And just to remind everybody, what we are essentially considering today is accessibility during events. It's not just the Christmas market. That is one event during the year, making sure that our city is open and available to everybody and working towards a position where that can be achieved. It is remarkably difficult, and we know it is tremendously painful as well for people who feel like they can't access the services or the social life that they deserve when it is their hometown. So on that note, you asked us if we would be in agreement for you to go away and consider alternative opening times for the Christmas market. And as Councillor Kilbane has outlined, I think we should be considering that. So we will add that as within the recommendations, and I'll mark that at that point as well. So thank you to everybody for your work and comments, and we go to page 121 for the recommendations at paragraph 17. And they are to agree and recommend an option of maintaining a wide range of city centre events and managing their impacts over the short and medium term through co-designed improvements. And it certainly sounds like we've got work to do on that. So please, everybody, listen to that very carefully. And then item paragraph 2 under 17 is approve the emerging package of short-term measures as set out at paragraph 26, and further work is needed on those as you've already outlined, and looking at where the funding can come from for them as well. And then paragraph 3 there, receive a subsequent paper setting out the outcomes of formal ATTRO consultation and associated actions, and then also to go away and consider if there is the option, financial viability option for giving greater access and having rest days or rest time during the Christmas market as well, please. So please, can I see those who are in favour of those recommendations? Great, thank you. So those are approved. So thank you for your work, and thanks for joining us this evening. So item number 11 then is the consultation on a York-wide smoke control area, and we have Mike Southcombe here, and sorry, I forgot Andrew Giller. Is that okay? Great, thank you, Andrew and Mike, and Peter Roderick is also with us to speak to the public health benefits, I'm sure. Do you want to start then, Peter?
I do, if that's okay, Chair, and then absolutely we'll hand over to my public protection colleagues. But thanks.
You might want to think about some of the comments we heard earlier.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I will address some of those directly. Yeah, absolutely want to introduce this and can hand it over to Mike and Andy for any comments on details on this. But I think at the heart of this is the public health implications of air quality. And that's why this is being brought forward and proposed. In the 10-year health plan, air quality is one of the 5 areas that is really highlighted as really amenable to working at a population level to make the population healthier. And I think if you look at the paper, and the first paragraphs refers to this figure, that actually the exposure to these microparticles, these really dangerous particles, lead to 1 in 22 deaths in York, which is quite a considerable portion of that preventable death. Actually, that really refers to outdoor air quality, because that's the thing that we can measure. So it's the often quoted figure, and it's really important. What is happening in the public health field and in research is that we're understanding the impact of indoor air quality a lot more as the years go by. And that's possibly why I think some of the things that decades ago we might have not considered, we are having to start considering, because the research is making it quite clear and the evidence is moving on. The recent evidence suggests that, particularly in rural areas, and this has been demonstrated in rural areas, that children's exposure to these microparticles, these small particles, occurs the most in home environments. So children in rural areas are not being exposed predominantly to the traffic-related types of small particles. They're being mainly exposed to the types of particles which are coming from indoor wood burning and some other sources of indoor air quality, like hobs and candles and things like that. But wood burning is a massive part of it. We know that and to really centre this on child health, we know that one of the most common causes of unexpected death in children under the age of 5 is asthma. Over the sort of 4-year period, over the COVID pandemic and a couple of years after, 54 children died in the UK because of an asthma exacerbation, and of those 54, 90% had overexposure to poor air quality. So we really are talking about quite severe consequences. We, as part of putting this proposal together, worked quite extensively with organisations like Mums for Lungs, who bring in that voice of people who've been affected, and quite a bit with our colleagues over at the Hospital Trust, including the respiratory consultant there. And I think the people who are most affected and the people who deal with the clinical consequences of poor air quality are incredibly supportive of measures like this. I do acknowledge, no public health measure is neutral. It requires behaviour change, seatbelts, outdoor smoking, etc. It does require us to respond to the evidence. And I think the evidence maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe hadn't got to this stage, but we are in an increasing sort of scenario in which indoor air quality is really being understood more and more as the years go by. And just finally, one recent piece of research suggests if we had smoke control areas in every urban area in the UK, you'd save about 320 deaths, so almost a death a day by having smoke control areas in urban areas such as in New York. So I think the public health evidence for this is really clear. Mike or Andy might talk a little bit more about the detail, but I thought that would be a helpful way to start.
Thank you, Peter. Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think Peter's probably said all the exciting stuff. I've got for more boring scientific stuff, I guess, as to why we're doing it. City of York Council's got a great track record on air quality, reducing air pollution to the point where in 2024 we met the government's health-based air quality objectives for all pollutants. However, up until our 4th Air Quality Action Plan, which we approved in 2024, the emphasis was mainly on pollution from traffic. That's significantly reduced in York now due to the policies that we've put forward. And what's become more noticeable is for pollution from burning, particularly of solid fuels for domestic heating. Wood burning has become quite popular in recent years for aesthetic as well as practical and economic reasons. However, the Chief Medical Officer's report of 2022 on air pollution clearly identified the burning of solid fuels as a major contributor to a type of pollution, but Peter's already outlined fine particulate matter, PM2.5, and as he said, this is both indoors and outdoors. Therefore, PM2.5 is a national priority in terms of public health and a significant risk. There's now a huge amount of evidence showing that exposure to PM2.5s, even at very low concentrations below the health-based objectives, are having very serious health impacts, particularly in terms of respiratory and cardiovascular health, especially in vulnerable groups like children, elderly people, and those with pre-existing conditions. The report proposed today seeks for approval to expand the Council's existing smoke control areas to cover the whole of York. In practice, this proposal would mean that residents and businesses would not be allowed to emit prolonged smoke emissions from any chimney attached to a building when burning solid fuels like wood. Locations outside of the current smoke control area account for about 35% of the properties in York using solid fuel, usually to supplement other forms of heating. However, there are many areas to be developed in the local plan that are not included, and this could lead, if we don't implement a smoke control area, to a significant increase in harmful emissions of PM2.5. This could also mean that those who are currently protected by smoke control areas in urban areas could be adversely affected by pollution from more rural areas and the new settlements that are being built. This could lead to a two-tier approach to health. Some residents would be more protected than others, and also a two-tier approach to the environment and climate change. It's important to note that the proposed York-wide smoke control area will not ban domestic solid fuel burning, but it will require all of York's residents to take responsibility for the fuel that they burn. That is to minimise indoor and outdoor air pollution, and in particular PM2.5s. The proposal will mean that residents who want to burn wood would need to either use a DEFRA approved stove and ensure that the wood is properly dried,
Residents can continue to use non-approved stoves and open fires for heating their homes, but they can only burn authorised smokeless fuels. We recognise that some low-income households may burn non-compliant solid fuels for financial reasons. In those particular cases, we will look at it on a case-by-case basis and take a proportionate approach. Our approach is to offer advice on best practice in terms of appropriate fuels and appliances in the first instance, with penalties being a last resort for persistent breaches of smoke control area rules. Residents who are struggling with the cost of heating and are burning unauthorised fuels will be signposted to advice on accessing financial and practical help on heating their homes in the first instance. This would include council schemes and available grants. Any expansion of the smoke control area would be supported by a communications campaign to ensure that residents are aware of the new legal requirements in York. This would reinforce the council's existing Fuel for Thought campaign. Following a meeting with parish councils, this will also include the production of a clear, accessible posters and leaflets that can be given out to local residents outlining the rules for smoke control areas and what can and cannot be burnt, with contact details for further advice if residents need it. Councillor Fisher made a number of comments. I didn't quite hear all of them because he had his back to us, but hopefully I've got some of them. He mentioned the issue around population density. That is not really an issue because there will be new settlements in a local plan in some of those currently population sparse areas, if I can put it like that. He talked about pollution being blown away. Unfortunately, pollution doesn't just disappear, it just blows to somebody else. So we do need to tackle it even in rural areas. He did mention that the proposals don't include smoke from bonfires, chimneys. That's because we already have legal powers to deal with that through statutory nuisance legislation. And he mentioned the issue around poorer residents using salvage logs. They can continue to do so as long as they properly dry out and season those logs. I think that covers most of the main points, but happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's very informative. Can I see if anybody would like to speak on this, please? Councillor Widdowson, you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good report, thank you. And a lot of work's obviously gone into it. Improving, you'll have to excuse my voice, so I apologise.
That's all right, losing mine.
Improving our air quality is a good thing. Ensuring consistency is a good thing. And being in line with national legislation is also good. But this consultation does feel like a sledgehammer to crack a nut. It appears to have been conceived in the city with people who've got less idea about the impact on rural communities. From the responses to the consultation, the level of anxiety and worry this has created is obvious. You mentioned yourself, Mike, that we're not stopping using burners, but we didn't get the comms right. Yet the analysis, if I've read it right, is that only 39 homes out of 90,000 may need to modify or upgrade their stoves to comply. So we're doing an awful lot of work there for 39 homes. Surely there may be a larger area to focus on to improve air quality across York. I welcome the intention, but I'm baffled at the implementation and I see no realistic or effective way this can be enforced.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Yes, and I also want to thank Peter and Mike and Andy for the huge amount of work that's gone into this and the extensive work that's gone into the consultation. And I really welcome this detailed report. I think I want to address the issues that Councillor Widdowson and Councillor Fisher raised first. So the consultation did come, there's no, you know, it came back with quite a few queries and people saying they didn't like the idea of this. If you look more deeply into those responses, though, a lot of them did think that this was a proposal to ban all wood burners, to ban all burning, which it emphatically isn't. And so that is a communication issue. And what we need to do is get that right. We have taken time, we've taken extra time since the close of that consultation to reach out and talk to parish councils. Peter and Mike, myself and Councillor Pavlovic met leaders of the parish council last week to expressly sort of address some of those concerns. And I'm going to attend the next parish council meeting in March so that if any questions arise from the implementation of this, I can answer those. And on the back of that, as Mike Southcombe said, we're going to develop posters, leaflets and other pieces of information to put in our more rural areas so that people understand the import behind this. I don't agree that this is a sledgehammer to crack a nut, because the air quality, the fact that only 39 homes might currently be in scope for change doesn't mean that there isn't a huge education piece that needs to be done. And part of what this consultation has shown is that people don't understand the health impacts of solid fuel burning. They genuinely don't understand how dangerous it is, that it causes asthma, that it causes Alzheimer's, that it causes COPD, heart attacks, stroke, and that it's really detrimental to human health. And so part of this is making it simpler. Why do we have one rule for the city centre and one rule outside of it? So we simplify the lot. We have a universal system. We don't have people on one side of a street who comply and people on the other side of the street who don't, because the air doesn't know any difference and it blows both ways. We make it much easier to enforce in terms of fuel sales, because if we know that the whole of the city of York is a smoke-controlled area, then only selling the appropriate fuels it should be allowed, and it's much easier to enforce that. So enforcement actually becomes simpler. And most importantly, apart from the education of all of us around what we can do to improve the health for our children and for all of us, is the new generations and for the new developments that are coming online. And that's many more than 39 homes. And the impact of that will be affecting all of us. It will also affect neighbouring authorities. So there are lots of things we can do in terms of improving air quality, and we have a really fantastic air quality team. Our most recent Air Quality Action Plan 4 outlines multiple steps that we're taking, and this is just one of them. But we're asked by national government to take all steps we can to improve air quality. This is one, and it's an important one, and I'm really pleased that we're bringing this today. I just wanted to address a couple more. If you look at paragraph 22, it makes it really clear that wood burning, solid wood burning at home is one of the dirtiest fuels possible. Paragraph 23 shows really clearly the health impacts, which are devastating for those that suffer from asthma. And paragraph 69 addresses Councillor Fisher's point that whilst previously people may have thought that this was a climate-friendly way of burning, of heating your homes, that recent evidence and recent science disputes that and says that's no longer the case, that wood burning has a negative impact. So for all those reasons, I welcome this report. I'm not complacent. I think lots of people do need to be helped to understand this, but our recent engagement with parish councils showed that they're willing to hear this, that 2 of them welcomed it. And again, I've had people writing to me to say, please, can you do something about people burning wood in my homes in rural areas with children who they say develop coughs throughout all winter, who struggle to breathe, who are on asthma medication. And we know that if you remove those sources of contaminants, that they improve. And why wouldn't we do that if we could? So I welcome this.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. And on that, the recommendations are on page 163 at paragraph 19, A and B. So paragraph 19A is consider the consultation summary and full comments, etc., etc. And B, delegate authority to the Director of Environmental and Regulatory Services to implement the smoke controlled area to come into effect on a date not less than 6 months after the date of making the order. And that is option A, which are of the options that are outlined in the paper. So can I see those who are in approval of those recommendations? Thank you. Those are approved unanimously. Very good. Right, so thank you to Peter, Mike and Andrew. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't come to you at all. Did you want to say anything? Thank you for all your work. I really appreciate it. I'm just thinking for everybody that this is going to be a longer meeting, so I suggest that we have a 5-minute break, just for a comfort break, to have a move around and come back at 6:15. So a few minutes, Nick, and then you'll be back on again. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. I hope that we would be starting at 6:15, and we're a few minutes late from that already, but we will carry on. So item number 12 is next, and that is the appropriation of land at Bootham Stray for highway purposes. And we have Gary Taylor and Nick Collins here to introduce us to the paper. Nick, are you going to go ahead? Please start.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. So the report sets out a proposed appropriation of a small part of Bootham Stray to upgrade cycleway and pedestrian infrastructure. The land will remain in the ownership of the council, but it will be changed to highway designated land. This follows a similar arrangement reported to Executive in 2018, where we were approached by the developers of the Cocoa Garden scheme, which needs to increase the visibility display of the existing access road to aid of residential development. As part of that deal, we agreed to take back an area historically let as a car park on the Stray to be converted back into green space. The area is larger than the areas which have and are proposed to be appropriated and has recently now been laid out as green open space. As part of the legal process required to appropriate land, the proposal has been advertised and public comment sought. No responses were received and the proposals have planning consent. It's therefore recommended to proceed with the appropriation as the report outlines.
Thank you very much, Nick. Gary, do you want to say anything?
Nothing further
No,
to add,
okay.
Chair.
Would anybody like to speak on this item? No, okay. Councillor Ravillius, you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Just very briefly to say that this appropriation of land is welcome, and it will create the necessary link to enable that continuous walking, wheeling and cycling provision, linking our existing active travel routes, and the upgraded bus stop and shelter are also welcome and support our transport strategy, our climate change strategy and our health strategy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ravillius. So on that note, then the recommendations are on page 278 and 279 of the report at paragraph 10. 10A is note the required consultation process in accordance with section 122 Local Government Act, that it was carried out and no objections were received, and B, approve the appropriation of the land shown shaded orange in Annex 1 for highway purposes. So can I see those in favour of that, please? That's approved unanimously. Thank you. Land appropriation approved. Off you go. Thank you. Item number 13 then is the delivery of the Gypsy and Traveller accommodation improvement and expansion programme. And we have Pauline Stutchfield and Zoe Dunn here to introduce us to this paper. So who is going to start? Pauline, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just to introduce Zoe, she's our new Head of Housing Delivery. She's just joined us. Thank you. So in March 2024, a report was brought to Executive to seek support for the delivery of additional Gypsy and Traveller accommodation pitches and improvements to the existing sites owned by the Council. And we've got 3 of those. An outline programme was agreed along with the principle of forward funding. And was subject to a more detailed delivery plan being brought to Executive at a later stage once surveys had taken place. The report confirms the proposals and asks for authorisation to proceed with the delivery of the programme. You're asked to support the delivery of the Gypsy and Traveller accommodation sites improvement and expansion plan and associated outline cost plan at Annex A. And there are a range of decisions associated with that in the recommendations contained in the report. And you're also asked to note a grant award and give approval to proceed with entering into an agreement to receive funding for the retrofit of energy efficiency measures to the utility buildings on the 3 Gypsy and Traveller accommodation sites. The report in summary talks about the budget agreed in February 2025, the local plan being adopted, which set out clear requirements for existing and future provision on council sites. Since then, also, we've appointed a senior Gypsy and Traveller accommodation project officer who's been working closely with the communities across the sites, and preliminary work has been completed, including a sample stock conditions survey across the 3 sites. Also to inform our plans, a resident survey was also carried out to help define the improvements further and prioritise them. The feedback from the survey is included amongst the details of the proposals in the report, and I'd like to thank the community for their participation in the survey and ongoing dialogue with us to develop the proposals in the report. The report specifically talks about the retrofit programme for the utility blocks and the hoped benefits to reduce bills, which I know are very, very high for residents in our on our sites, and seek to permanently address the damp and mould issues that residents have told us about very recently. At paragraph 29, the much needed improvements to Outgang Lane are described, and other improvements in relation to the landscaping work at Osbaldwick, and also the implementation of CCTV at Clifton, which has already been carried out. The report also talks about the Clifton site expansion proposals for 6 new pitches, and also the further provision for identified needs of 28 new Gypsy and Traveller pitches in York that is to be met through the housing strategic allocations through the local plan. So members are asked to approve the recommendations in the report, and again, can I thank the community for their support for the recommendations in this report.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Zoe, would you like to say anything at all? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Would members like to speak on this item? Yeah, Councillor Pavlovic, please go ahead.
Sorry, I thought Councillor Widdowson would go first. Thank you, and absolute huge welcome to Zoe and the work of her team. And I'm particularly grateful not just to the team that have worked within CYC, but also the feedback that we've managed to get from both the residents, as Pauline mentioned, but also York Travellers Trust, who had sight of this report and did make recommendations which we were able to incorporate into that report. And although the paper that we discussed in 2024 outlined improvements that we were wanting to make and that we allocated a budget for, we're now actually starting to see how that money is now being spent. And that's incredibly important because for too long, not just in York, but across the country, promises are made and then not followed through on. And we intend to make sure that in this administration and in this 4-year cycle, that we actually start to deliver the promises that we've made. Warm words, butter no parsnips, so to speak. And we can talk and we can talk and we can talk, but the evidence will be in what we actually deliver. So the improvements that have already been made to the road access on Outgang Lane, moving towards the Osbaldwick site, is already making huge strides. The fact that we've now got a more responsive response to repairs when issues were highlighted last week regarding damp and mould in some of the pitches at Osbaldwick, no, Clifton, James Street. They were immediately investigated, and the work is taking place this week. So I just think it's really important that we say, yes, we need to deliver more pictures, but the ones that we've got have got to improve. You know, the majority of pictures in all three sites, EPC E. You know, it only goes down to F. And so I really hope that by the next winter, every resident will have an access to a warm, easy to heat and cheaper to heat home. I'd like to support the recommendations within the report. It's a start, it's not an end. We won't get everything right, but we will make every attempt to improve the service that we've neglected this community for far too long.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Pavlovic. And I couldn't agree more that this is a community that is in desperate need of investment in their living environment, and this couldn't come soon enough. And I would like to thank particularly Violet Cannon from the York Travellers Trust with her guidance and expertise. She's second to none in that respect, and we've really benefited from that. So a big thank you to Violet and her community as well. So on that note, then we go to the recommendations, which are on page 299 and 300. And there are a lot of them, and they are quite detailed for good reason. So paragraph 17A is agree with progressing the delivery of the Gypsy and Traveller accommodation improvement and expansion programme, and that includes the authorisation to use £1.95 million from section 106 contributions and 0.625 million from York and North Yorkshire combined authority grant, and up to 2.675 million from general fund long-term borrowing in order to finance that. B, agree to the delivery of improvement works of the Osbaldwick site access road, which is Outgang Lane, as you've heard, and issue a traffic regulation order to restrict parking as part of the proposed improvements. And then C, agree to procure a retrofit services team to produce proposals to improve the energy efficiency of those 61 utility buildings. D, agree to procure a design team to develop a master plan for the expansion of the Clifton site. And E, with respect to A to D above, agree to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to take such steps that are necessary to procure and appoint any contractors for those works, etc., etc. F, note the site that a site search is referred to in the local plan or call for sites exercise to be undertaken by planning in 2026 in collaboration with stakeholders, and to identify locations of 17 further pitches. G, note the Carbon Negative Challenge Fund grant award received from the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority to contribute to the retrofit measures, and to delegate the ability to accept that money and sign the grant agreement to the Director of Housing and Communities and Director of Finance to go ahead and get that money into the council. And H, approve transfer of capital contingency of 625,000 for budget to support the grant from the Combined Authority, and I, to agree to the application to Homes England for funding from Social and Affordable Homes Programme to deliver new accommodation pitches on council sites, and to grant delegation to the Director of Housing and Communities and Director of Finance to enter into that grant agreement and receive funding that is awarded to the local authority. So can I see everybody who's in agreement with those recommendations? Those are approved. Thank you. Can I ask somebody to turn the lights up a bit, please? Because they're starting to go off. Just aware of them going down. We're sitting very still. So thank you both to Pauline and Zoe. Really appreciate that for the work that you've been doing on the Gypsy and Traveller accommodation. And you are staying in position now. And also Gary Taylor is joining you for item number 14 to speak about delivering more affordable housing in York and specifically the Castle Mills site. So who is starting on this? Pauline, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a bit of a strange position for all three of us because this all predates ourselves in terms of the history of the site. But this paper seeks approval for a proposed delivery route for affordable housing at the Castle Mills site. Hopefully this is the final set of proposals, which we will then take forward to a detailed proposal. So this report seeks decisions in respect of a strong new build pipeline with a budget to prepare the design by adapting the existing proposals to build 100% affordable housing at the Castle Mills site. Note that the Brownfield Fund grants have been awarded from the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority to CYC for the development of affordable housing, not only at Castle Mills, but also at the former Manor School and 68 Centre sites, and agreed to proceed with entering into those grant agreements. Also note that a Brownfield Land Release Fund grant application to One Public Estate has been submitted to contribute to funding the Willow House project delivery, including the necessary enabling works, and pending the grant award, agree to proceed with entering into that grant agreement to receive the funding. So just to talk about a little about the history, paragraphs 21 to 23 summarise the events over the last few years. And as you're aware, in November 2023, a decision was made by this executive to pause work on the development as it was considered to be no longer a viable scheme at that time, and to explore longer-term delivery of affordable housing on that site. And in July 2024, a further paper was presented to you seeking permission to progress discussions with a registered housing provider. Unfortunately, the housing provider have indicated that they're not currently seeking to bring the site forward. So we feel we've exhausted that route. A viability review of the design and cost information available around the site to take this, to continue to take this forward as an affordable housing site has taken place, and indicatively and subject to increased grant rates through Homes England, in addition to the Brownfield Fund grant already secured, the review suggests that this site is likely to be viable for delivery as a fully affordable city centre scheme, focused on delivering much needed affordable accommodation, including for key workers, currently appraised as 60% social rent and 40% shared ownership accommodation. The details of the review are contained in the report and costings in Annex A. And without going into the detail too much, I'll assume that you've read that and ask you to approve the recommendations in the report.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Zoe or Gary, would you like to say anything at all? No? No? Okay, thank you. Any members like to speak on this item? Councillor Widdowson, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. The provision of more genuinely affordable homes for York residents is an ambition we all share. Where we disagree is how we go about delivering that. It's worth remembering that this administration inherited a shovel-ready scheme with planning permission in place for over 100 homes. The scheme was stopped. Had it gone ahead, it would have delivered much-needed housing and more than 11 million to the wider development of the area. This would have negated the need to borrow so heavily for the Castle Car Park scheme and allow the much needed bridge to go ahead. Instead, because of political dogma, almost 3 years later, the scheme is now no further on. It's clear that the attempts to sell the site to a registered provider have not been successful. The fact that none of these could make a 100% affordable scheme viable should be a red flag. This paper has not been to scrutiny, and that's understandable. While we are limited to what we can say in public, the business case underpins this decision simply does not stack up. There is a multi-million-pound black hole where the land value should be. A third of the overall budget is still speculative, and this paper gambles almost 3 million on the hope bids are successful. Given the recent track record of the Westminster government, I wouldn't expect anything from them. And what does the scheme deliver? The original proposal delivered 21 genuinely affordable homes. This scheme uses 6 million of right-to-buy receipts to increase this figure. When you take into account the homes lost through right-to-buy, there is a net gain of 47 homes. 47 homes for 10 million of borrowing, 11 of lost income, and millions of pounds of lost land value. Worse still, these homes aren't really affordable. 37 of the affordable flats will be sold for more than the market value of the homes that were originally proposed on the site. Costs will be in the region of £1,500 per month for a 2-bedroom flat. Simply unaffordable for the vast majority of residents.
Can I just stop you there, please? I think you're totally speculating on these numbers. There is no value assigned to the properties at this point in time at all. So can you just stick to the facts, please, and we'll get through this as quickly as we can. Thank you.
This is sticking to the facts, and these facts have been checked through BRIN through Democratic Services. We did actually
Democratic Services, I don't think, speak about financial information on
which went through the confidential papers to say what we could or couldn't lift out of them without.
Are we straying into the confidential
let me just carry
papers?
on. We also have significant concerns
Thank
about.
you. Stop.
Interesting.
I believe the general discussion in relation to the figures is ballparks were permitted, so that if there was a rough indication of totals, going into specifics, like for example, specific rents on a monthly basis would be beyond that and would be far more specific and within the confidential papers. So if you can retain the figures to ballparks in a general sense, to make the point that you're trying to make, that would be sufficient for now, without straying into what could potentially be exempt information.
Okay, many thanks. There are also significant concerns about the suggestion of 1-bedroom flats suitable for 1 person, as well as single-bed flats suitable for 2. How large will these units be?
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. Do the officers want to say anything at this point? Thank you. To just correct factual inaccuracies, if you can. Thank you.
In fact, as Pauline said, none of us were involved in terms of going back, although we have had to go back to come forward on a number of these items. So, in terms of the bridge, it's worth noting that obviously there's a viability element to the bridge, but the key element in terms of why that was is not being progressed was in last year's major projects report, and that relates to actually the actual deliverability of the bridge relating to its site, its location, and a number of environmental factors, which would have meant that it would take years to get that bridge actually delivered. Notwithstanding, the actual sum that was assessed against the bridge to build it would be significantly more even when that assessment was made. So sort of the quantity surveying that was undertaken was pretty much undervaluing the actual addition, the final capex costs. Scheme design, in terms of inheriting a deliverable design, and that actually probably correct at the point in time, but notwithstanding, not long after that, the new building regs came in. So in effect, the scheme design that got planning would have been undeliverable almost immediately. So one of the key elements is because the new building regs in effect require anything above 6 stories, you've got to put a whole raft of more infrastructure in, excepting that wasn't the case when the original design was approved. But almost immediately,
scheme that was not deliverable in that sense. So a lot of this redesign and additional cost is around bringing it down 6 floors and getting the scheme within the new building regulations. Fairly confident bids in the context of the brownfield funding and affordable homes programme, significantly more affordable homes programme. We've had very, very positive noises, so I'm fairly confident that funding will be available. And the scheme, as outlined in terms of delegations to Pauline, would only be delivered if we can get a viable scheme. So in effect, it's got no direct impact on the housing revenue account, in a sense, in terms of the income that the housing revenue account brings through its rents. In terms of and speaking very generically, whether or not something's affordable in the context, there's the affordable homes programme and shared ownership programme will be set in the context of a national programme. So the rates, the final rental rates that are set, and the final sale shared ownership rates are set within that national programme. So it is considered affordable homes in that sense nationally. Notwithstanding the actual figures that I don't think we actually directly recognise, but we can take that way separately out with this whole meeting.
Yeah, they did seem to be plucked out of thin air from my perspective, but perhaps Councillor Pavlovic, you can offer some additional information. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you to the office, and thank you for the clarification from Gary. I really, really feel for Councillor Widdowson. If ever she was given a hospital pass by her leader, who has given her, quite frankly, a load of hogwash to read, and then gone on holiday, this is it. And so I'm not going to go into the detail, because I'm sure he's enjoying himself. But the points are, we have a scheme that was mothballed by the previous administration on the grounds of not being viable. And we are delivering our 100% affordable housing scheme. And those are genuinely affordable schemes, with 60% being at social rent. And the shared ownerships, as we found from our other shared ownership schemes, are incredibly popular for those, particularly those key workers, for example, that can't get on the property ladder. Schemes like this are really, really valued. The grant funding is already in place from the MCA. The combined authority have already allocated, and the request today is for us to accept that. Councillor Widdowson seems to think that Homes England aren't interested in delivering affordable housing, and therefore they can't rely on that. But we've already, we don't put these things in a report because we've got no idea whether these funds are going to arrive. Many conversations have taken place with Homes England, and Zoe, although she's new, and by the way, massive welcome. She's already been involved in conversations. Her predecessors were involved in conversations. They have a commitment to deliver affordable housing, not just in York, but across the country. Castle Mills, a scheme that I was roundly assured by members of the opposition could never be delivered, is about to be delivered. There will be a more detailed business case. I'm not going to go into anything that's in the confidential papers, but this is a viable scheme. And people can criticise delivering housing on brownfield sites, and clearly we've just heard that. But we make no apologies. we don't want to sell these where we are delivering them. This administration will focus on delivering genuinely affordable housing. So, in a nutshell, Chair, I support the recommendations in the report and hope that all members support me.
Thank you, Councillor Pavlovic. And yeah, I cannot emphasise enough how supportive the people of York that I have spoken to, and it has been many hundreds of people over the last few months, how supportive they are of the council building 100% truly affordable on council owned land, because basically they understand that if we aren't delivering it, then nobody else in the city is, and that is public land that needs to be put to the best effect of housing local people in places that they can afford. And as you've said, this scheme, against all the odds, is actually viable with that level of social rent on there and shared ownership, which really is going to help us with our housing list, but also to, as you've outlined, to get people onto the housing market, which is an absolutely fantastic thing, and to keep more of our families in York. And I have to say, when we were in opposition, and I would sit in that spot where Councillor Widdowson is and listen to the housing reports that were coming through from the administration of the time, and there was no interest in getting that housing list down, no interest in really looking towards housing those people that really needed it in our city. And as I have said many a time publicly, we are saddled now with that market value houses for sale on council-owned land that we don't have enough of in the first place, on council-owned land, and it just is not working for the people of York. So I'm really glad to see this come forward. It really speaks to the need of housing in our city, and we are doing something positive about that. And the people of York need to recognise that if it's not us sat around this table and it is our opposition, they won't be getting this 100% affordable on council-owned land. So on that note, we will go to the recommendations, which are on page 344 and 345, paragraph 12. And there are 10 recommendations. Housing always like to give me a ton of them, and they are quite detailed and they're quite important as well. So I will have to try and summarise as I go through. So 12A is to agree the preferred delivery route of 100% affordable housing at Castle Mill site with the procurement of design team and to achieve a refined design to REBA stage 3 using the proposed on-cost budget. B, agreed to the submission of planning application with refined Castle Mills design. C, agreed to procure a contractor to operate under a pre-contract services agreement or other type of design-only contract to take the Castle Mills to REBA stage 4 and price the design. And then a full business case will come back to executive for approval. D, recommend to full council creation of the Castle Mill scheme within the HRA capital programme. The wider business case for which will come forward at a later date. E, recommend to full council approval of a budget of 2.377 million funded from the HRA borrowing to develop proposals through REBA stages 3 and 4 as outlined above. And F, to agree to delegate authority to Director of Housing and Communities in consultation with Director of Finance and Director of Governance to take such steps to appoint the contractors and enter into contracts and get on with signing those contracts essentially. G is to agree to the preparation and submission of applications to Homes England for funding from the Social and Affordable Homes Programme to deliver affordable homes at Castle Mills. H, note the Brownfield Fund grant awards received from the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority for development of the affordable housing at Castle Mills, former Manor School and 68 centre sites, and to proceed to grant agreements to receive that funding. I note the Brownfield Land Release Fund grant application to the One Public Estate that has been submitted to contribute to the funding of Willow House project delivery. And then J, further to G, H and I above, to agree to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities in consultation with Director of Finance and Director of Governance to determine provisions of and enter into any resulting grant funding agreements with Homes England and the Combined Authority, etc., etc. Right, so can I see those who are in favour of all of those recommendations? Thank you. So those are approved unanimously, and we will get on and deliver 100% truly affordable housing on our council-owned sites. So thank you very much, and thank you for all of the work that you've done. And Zoe, welcome to executive. Thank you very much. Item 15 then is the update on the asset management strategy 2026 to 2031. And here we have Sean Gibbons, Nick Collins and Dave Mee. That is a very varied group of officers we have at the table down there. You don't often sit next to each other on the with these things, do you? So who's going to start? Nick, are you? I thought that might be the case. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So the report sets out the strategy going forwards for our wide-ranging property estate and details progress against the previous 2020 to 25 strategy. It details outcomes and workflows against particular property decisions made, such as the lettings and disposals, which include the work at the Guildhall, Holgate and the Eco Business Centre. The strategy sets out the key principles governing the management of our property portfolio, recognising the importance that property plays in delivery of council services, provision of income through the commercial portfolio, and maximising positive outcomes in our communities. The report details specific analysis on the composition and performance of the commercial portfolio, which brings in approximately £7 million per annum, which helps support the funding of our services. Furthermore, the report also outlines the role of the operational estate and details where we have significantly increased our income at West offices in letting out surplus space. The strategy also sets out the well-established principle of transferring assets into the community, encouraging increased community ownership, and finally provides a section detailing our work to use our assets more sustainably, building upon the work already achieved, which has included the creation of a new woodland, for example, at Knapton, by acquiring land and negotiating a lease with Forestry England. There are a considerable number of specific property deals outlined within the report and which form the report's recommendations. This includes the proposed transaction at Coney Street to aid the regeneration of this key area of the city centre, and a renewal of the lease at Spark York, which has recently attained planning consent to continue. There are also numerous recommended community transactions involving allotments, leisure and park space at Roundtree Park, along with space at Strensel and Hull Road. The report was reported to place scrutiny in January, and it is now proposed to proceed in accordance with a list of recommendations outlined.
Thank you, Nick. Does anybody else want to say anything down there at this point in time? No, very good. Oh, go ahead then, Dave. Thank you.
Right, here we go. Obviously, I'll be very brief. The section that I was particularly responsible for is the community leases. They've all been developed with the sort of applicants. I've been out to see them, met them, explain the process. They followed it all through the scrutiny, and to hear, obviously following your decision today, I shall update them following that. For me, it really helps. It's a two-way thing. It enables communities to help, do what they need to do themselves, but also we get greater care of our residual land that we look after. So it's a win for the community and a win for the council, in that we get more animation, more care, more investment, hopefully, as well in the services.
Great, thank you very much. All right, who would like to speak on this item? Councillor Widdowson, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a good and thorough report, so thank you. On the asset management strategy more broadly, it's right to recognise the work of the previous executive member of finance. Rental income increased by almost 50%, which was a significant achievement for the city. I know it was working with you. But since then, incomes have largely stagnated at a time when we face serious financial pressures. That represents a lost opportunity. We support sensible asset transfers, and it's hard to ignore how long Roundtree Lodge has sat vacant. Empty assets do not generate income, do not serve residents, and do not reflect good estate management. Turning to the specific decisions before us, on Holland and Parrot, this is a poor deal. The value now offered is well below what had previously been negotiated. Value offered is 25% what had been negotiated previously and represents a 7-figure loss to the council. This is a significant loss. The administration has surrendered leverage, something that this executive has done before in negotiations over student accommodation and affordable housing, receiving little tangible benefit for residents in return. I also question the assumption being presented. We're told that the retail space will be reduced by 70%, yet the income only falls by 30%. That transfers significant future risk to the council to try and make those numbers stack. And critically, the information presented to the executive only meaningfully considers one option. There's no independent valuations of alternative routes and no serious analysis of maintaining the status quo. The legal section points to a need to refer to the Secretary of State for sales 2 million or more below open market value. We're not convinced that this test has been met. Asset decisions of this scale require rigorous comparison and full transparency. At the moment, that reassurance simply isn't there for the executive to make the decision today. On 17 to 21 Piccadilly, we remain of the belief that this site should be progressed as intended as a 100% affordable scheme.
Thank you for those very helpful comments, Councillor Widdowson. Do you want to correct anything that is factually inaccurate that is not contained within the restricted papers? Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I'll just come in on the Coney Street one. I think I caught there that we were being suggested that we were going to make a loss, which obviously I'm not going to talk about figures, but that's obviously for those who've read the confidential appendix, that's not the case. I think that's worth just stipulating there. That was the key point I picked up.
Thank you very much, Nick. Very much appreciated. Please go ahead, Councillor Lomas.
Thank you, Chair. I am often reminded of the fact that when we have confidential information, we always try to have as much of our discussion and decision making in public as possible, and agree not to discuss confidential information in an open meeting. And there are always people who then proceed to try to discuss the confidential information in an open meeting, and it's not helpful. I will note that there was extensive discussion at cross-party scrutiny around this, much of it in confidential sessions, so that all of the detail that is in those confidential papers was discussed at length, and officers were incredibly patient in making sure that everyone around the table was in complete understanding of the information that was before them, and they repeated themselves far too many times to count to make sure that everyone got a good understanding of that. And I'm very grateful to officers for doing that, because it's really important that we are able to scrutinise properly decisions that are to be made. And I think it's important to note that our asset strategy is a truly cross-council piece of work, where officers come together from so many different parts of the council and bring together loads of different elements for the good of residents in many varied ways. That is through commercial income, which provides us with an income that we use to fund services for residents, as well as making the best use of assets for community benefit and balancing those two and making sure that we don't chase too much commercial income at the expense of community benefit, and making sure that when we are delivering community benefit, when we're transferring assets to the community, that we retain the ability to support community organisations in using those assets and using them well. And I personally have witnessed so many examples of officers really working hard with community groups to make sure they can get the most of assets that they use and they make use of on behalf of residents to deliver directly to residents. And there's just a couple of things I wanted to pull out of the specific recommendations. One of the recommendations is about our use of the operational space here in West Offices. And when I talk to my counterparts around the country in different councils, they are very envious of the way that we have been able to change our use of space in this building to make sure that we are almost covering all of our costs of running council operations from this building with the rental income that we've been able to generate. And I thank officers for all the work that they do constantly, day in, day out, to make sure that we make the best use of space that we possibly can in this wonderful building that we're so lucky to be able to inhabit. I also want to say something about the Rowntree Park lodge and garage. I've been given a wonderful tour of those buildings and have seen firsthand the challenges of bringing them into use, making them accessible within the context of them being in a park, and all the restrictions on the development of them through planning. And I've seen how hard community groups have worked to try and find a way to bring them into use for the good of residents, not to sell them off for commercial profit. And I think that's really important. That park was gifted to the people of York, and we absolutely have a duty to preserve it and make it work for the people of York. And the only thing I will say about Coney Street is that I'm so grateful for officers for their skillful work and negotiations in making sure that we get the best for residents of York overall from all of the commercial property agreements and arrangements that we enter into. And I'm really happy to recommend this, and indeed to bring forward the recommendations from the cross-party scrutiny that we have absolutely taken on board in bringing this paper to executive.
Thank you, Councillor Lomas. And yes, yeah, there's a huge amount of work in here, and I'd like to thank you all for everything that you do every day to get the best value out of our assets for the community, but also for the council and our finances. It's hugely important and cannot be and shouldn't be underestimated. So the recommendations for the paper, therefore, are on page 384 and 385, and there are a number of them here as well. It's under paragraph 18. So A is to note the performance of the council's property estate and annual revenue. And also, yeah, so that is all about performance under carbon footprint, and also reshaping of the operational estate at West Offices to provide additional annual revenue. B, agree the principles of strategy, which will form the corporate asset strategy for the next 5 years. C is to agree to various leases there and sale of 25 to 27 Coney Street and lease back part on a 999-year lease. And I have to say, I think that is a really good solution to be able to financially benefit at the same time as retaining property with a long-term sustainable income as well. Grant of lease renewal at 17 to 21 Piccadilly. So we've got allotments on there. We are leasing them to Yakio for 35 years at Peppercorn Rental, and of course so many people in the community really value that. We've got Bustard Thorpe allotments, extension of the lease there under Peppercorn Rental. Roundtree Park maintenance depot for the York Canoe Club for 15 years, another fantastic use of space. We've got the Roundtree Park, the garage to the Friends of Roundtree Park for 15 years. Roundtree Park Lodge Garden to the Friends of Roundtree Park for 99 years. We've got land in on York Road in Strensall to Strensall and Towthorpe Parish Council for 70 years at Peppercorn Rent. And the lease the land in Hull Road Park to Choose to Youth for 10 years at Peppercorn Rent. Also hugely important community facilities, hugely important. And then finally, D, delegate to the Director of Finance in consultation with Director of Governance authority to take such steps as are necessary to agree and complete the above transactions as detailed in the report, and to acquire and dispose of all interests in land for all future acquisitions and disposals. And so can I see those in favour of those?
Chair, if it's okay, it has occurred to me that I am an allotment holder. And while I can guarantee you it is not a pecuniary interest, quite the opposite, I just wanted to be clear about that before we come to that. I don't think that excludes me from voting. I think
No, you can
some role with it somewhere.
participate in the
All right,
vote.
thanks.
Therefore, I'm getting an indication from Chris Coss that that's possible. Okay, so can I see those who are in favour of all of those recommendations, please? Thank you. So that's approved unanimously. And just for the minutes as well, Councillor Webb left the meeting at 6:30 p.m. So he hasn't been voting since that point in time. Right, thank you very much, everybody, for that. Item 16 is urgent business. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. And we haven't got any urgent business, so that is the end of the meeting. And I would like to thank you. Yes, Councillor Pavlovic.
I don't think we can mark the end of this meeting without offering our thanks and congratulations to
home for dinner.
Yes,
Yeah.
to
Shall I take over here?
Please do.
Sorry, Ian. We must mark the fact that this is the final executive of Ian before he retires from his role as Head of Paid Service and Chief Operating Officer after 17 years service to the City of York Council. And I'd like to thank him for everything he has done for the organisation in that period, and also for standing alongside me since May 2023 as Chief Operating Officer alongside me as leader. So thank you, Ian. Thanks for everything. Right, now we can bring the meeting to a close, I think. Thank you.